Welcome back to the DSR channel. I am covering the new book that just released this morning, Eberron, Forge of the Artificer, which is exciting. I've been giddy with anticipation, waiting for this. There's a lot of good stuff here. Wish it was better, but there's some. They improved everything. Everything's better, but they needed more. And yeah, so I'm going through the subclasses. I'm going to cover the Artillerist in this video. And my goal for subscribers is to get to 2,000 this week. I only started the channel 86 days ago, and so if you like this kind of content and you're nerdy into D&D like I am, I really appreciate a like and subscribe. And if not, then I guess don't watch the videos and give me a like. That'll show me. All right, here's the Artillerist. First up, so again, I'm going to focus on the differences. So they get proficiency with all ranged martial weapons, which is good because that includes firearms. So now this is the only subclass we've seen so far that has access to be able to use firearms because they took it away from the base artificer. Now, all you need is martial weapon proficiency. So with a single dip, you can get martial weapon proficiency, or you can take the feat. This might be I don't know. I don't know if that's worth it. I wouldn't dip for that or take a feat for that, at least unless you have at least like extra attack, right? Like if you have a single attack, it's not worth spending a feat on that. Okay, but they get martial range weapons, so they could be using firearms, muskets, pistols, things like that. They get the proficiency with the woodcarver's tools, just like before. You can swap it, which you could do before. Then you get the wand crafting, which is the 10th level ability that they took away from the base class and give it to the subclasses, but now it's better, right? Because there's no rarity restriction on it. So you could be crafting rare and very rare and legendary wands, and you craft them in half the time, which is a decent benefit. And so just another reason, guys, DMs, I recommend you play with magic item crafting rules so that all of the artificers can benefit from this. It's fun. It's cool. The key to it is just managing the amount of downtime you give out. Okay, that's the whole key. And maybe I'll do another video on that if you're interested in how I manage it. But yeah, manage the downtime. All right, spell list, identical, completely the same. Then we get into the Eldritch Cannon, which is the premier subclass feature here. Largely the same. Okay, you still activate it with a magic action. It can still be small or tiny. Tiny can ride on somebody. Small, it occupies its space. It has the same statistics: 18 AC, 5 times your artificer level in hit points. You can mend it with a mending spell. It is immune to poison and psychic, so they've laid it out and phrased things a bit differently, but it's identical. And the one thing they didn't change, and they really, really should have, is the 1 hour duration, guys. Come on. That's a huge problem. You have a half caster who already has restricted spell slots, and you're going to make them lose their subclass after 1 hour if they don't spend more spell slots. You don't do that to like the Beastmaster Ranger, and they're a half class. Their pet lasts indefinitely. And the Artificer Battlesmith, right? Their pet doesn't disappear after an hour. At least I hope they haven't. I haven't read that part yet. They didn't used to. Like, this is ridiculous. And this isn't, the Eldritch Cannon is nice. It's good. It's not super strong. That's just, So I just ignore that when I DM it, and I advise DMs to ignore that too because they have limited spell slots. If this was a full caster class, this is fine. 1 hour duration and you got to spend another spell slot on a full caster, okay, but not a half caster. All right, back to the details of the Eldritch Cannon. The big change here is that you create one cannon. So you used to have to choose the cannon type when you created it, and it was always that type. Now you just create a cannon, and every time you activate it with a bonus action, you choose which effect it has, which is so much better. So much better, right? On one round, maybe your allies need a bunch of temporary hit points, so you have it do the protector. On the next round, maybe you have it do the flamethrower because it's riding on the shoulder of your tank frontliner on the front line, and it just blasts them in a cone. You're going to get 3 or 4 monsters with that. Great. Or maybe it's riding on your shoulder and you use Force Ballista to just blast away. Maybe there's somebody on the front line giving temporary hit points to the front line, and then you're giving temporary hit points with your ballista on the back line to all the backliners, and when they don't need it, you fire it off as the Eldritch Cannon, just taking shots at things at long range. So pretty great. And keep in mind that that means you can use the protector function between combats. So there's nothing to prevent you from just giving all these temporary hit points to make sure that your party starts with temporary hit points every single time. And yes, you could make the player just like hit the button over and over and over until they got the max number. Why? There's no point. If they're unrestricted with time, just say within 1 minute you're guaranteed to get the max, and now everybody has the max, which would be 8 plus your intelligence modifier, right? Just save time and do that. Okay, so that's a big upgrade there, which is nice. Arcane firearm, this works identically. Works identically, except you can put it on almost identically. You can put it on martial ranged weapons now. So you can put it on your pistol, you can put the sigil on your longbow or your crossbow and things like that. Now, it doesn't benefit the longbow and crossbow, it just benefits your spells, but still kind of cool, right? And use your you can use this as your spellcasting focus. So if you put it on your crossbow, your pistol, or your longbow, then you can now use that weapon as your spellcasting focus and still cast your spells through it. And then when you don't need to, I guess, cast a spell or even a cantrip, you can shoot at long range with your longbow and do a little bit of damage. You don't get the benefit of using your intelligence modifier instead of your dexterity. So the benefit of using martial ranged weapons is limited because you've got to pump up your dexterity if you want to be any good at that. But you need intelligence first. Like, so cool idea. They didn't fully execute that, right? If they really wanted this to be a cool thing for the artillerist, they should have given you extra attack and made you attack, allowed you to attack the ranged weapons with your intelligence. And that still wouldn't have been OP. That would have been good, not great, guys. Okay, explosive cannon. So a very welcome change here. The firepower. So they increase the damage rolls of the 2 damage options by 1d8, and the protector's option of temporary hit points now increases by 1d8, which you didn't get before. Before it only increased damage. So hallelujah. Excellent. Good to get that. The detonate function is largely the same. The biggest change is now it's a reaction when your cannon takes damage instead of an action, right? So you probably never used this before because you'd have to guess: is it about to die? Do I really want it to be killed? And because this is like a big part of your class, I mean, this is the majority of your subclass, and so getting rid of it is not something you want to do lightly. You'd only do it when it's about to die, but it would take your action, so you'd have to guess: would it die in the next round? And if it does, now I'll use my action now. And your action is probably better spent doing something else anyway, because 3d8 force damage is just not worth your action probably. So they change it. Now it's a reaction. And so now you can just say, wait until it dies. It finally gets hit with a hit that's going to kill it. And then you use the reaction to make it explode. And the damage is pumped up to 3d10 a little bit, which is like 16.5 damage, which is better than nothing. The problem here is that it still has friendly fire. So you still may not use this unless your front line all has resistance to force damage. It would have been better if they said maybe fire damage or something like that, because then it's far more likely your party could have resistance to fire than force. Or just remove friendly fire. Like that would have been fine, guys. Like, and it would have allowed you to use the artillers to use this more often, which would have been just cool. Okay. All right. So close to greatness. All right. Level 15 fortified position. The name is the same and virtually identical, right? Everybody within 10 feet of your cannon gets half cover, which is good. That's +2 AC and +2 to dexterity saving throws. I think we often forget the dexterity saving throw part, but +2 to dexterity saving throws. Which is nice, and double the firepower, which means you can create 2 cannons. The change here is the only thing they really change is just the wording to indicate that when you use the bonus action to activate them, you can choose the same or different effects, right? So you don't have to choose the same effect. Whereas before you created the cannon and it would say, okay, at that time you can choose to create them both the same or make them different. And then with the bonus action, you would still activate them, but they had to choose the action of the cannon type they were, right? So that's all gone, right? So now it's just 2 cannons. They can do when you activate it, you can have one do a protector pulse of temporary hit points, the other one do an Eldritch cannon or the flamethrower, which is good. I think this is overall a significant improvement over the previous Artillerist. That change to how the Eldritch Cannon functions is huge. All right, just being able to choose the different effect from round to round is huge. It is not good that they didn't remove that duration. They should have. I recommend you ignore it. That's just not cool. I think there's an overall significant improvement on the Artillerist. They should have done a few more things with it. I would have liked to have seen that. And like the things I mentioned, none of those are going to be OP. It would have been OP. It would have been. I still think this would have been like A minus range damage dealer kind of class, or an A minus type blaster maybe. I don't know if they can even. I don't know if they get up to A minus blaster. They might still be a B level blaster at best, just because they're a half caster, right? You're at level 5, you're dropping a shatter, and you get the extra 1d8 on it, so you're doing a 48 shatter blast, which is 18 hit points on average of damage. Your ally is dropping a fireball. Your wizard buddy dropped a fireball, which on average is 28 damage, right? Which has a bigger area. You're just never catching up. I mean, finally at level 9, you can cast fireballs, and you're going to add a d8 to that, which is like, woo, my fireball is better than your base level fireball, except the wizard can just upcast their fireball to 5th level, or use Vitriolic Sphere, which does more damage anyway and is better damage type. So you will never catch up to a wizard or a sorcerer as a blaster, or a bard, right, at high levels. If a bard wants to be a blaster with magical secrets, they'll be a better blaster than you ever will, just because they have the spell slots and the spells. But that being said, you probably get to a B level blaster as an artillerist, and A minus level ranged damage dealer between your cantrip, for your action that could be boosted with your arcane firearm for an extra 1d8, plus 2 eldritch cannons at level 15 doing eldritch, doing the force ballista. And that is doing 3d8 damage at level 15 now, times 2, so 68 damage from those. At level 15, you're doing like 3d10 with your firebolt, plus another d8. So your total damage for the round would be 3d10 plus 78. That is a decent single target damage dealer. I think you're a solid A level damage dealer, ranged damage dealer. Not bad. I think that the martial ranged weapon is a trap. You're better off with like a wand of fireballs and using that as your arcane focus, and then you're just firing off fireballs, and when you don't need a fireball, blasting for that fire, that single target range damage. Okay, overall an improvement. Should have been better. I like it. It is better. And I'm probably going to play it. As soon as I get a chance. I mean, I haven't been able to be a player for like over a month now, but I would be excited to play this. But frankly, I'd be excited to play the Alchemist and anything else in this book. I just love the Artificer so much. All right. Thanks for watching. Remember to be cool with people. Also, if you don't have enough D&D in your life, I've got in every one of these descriptions, you can link to find me on Discord, a link to find me on Start Playing Games if you want to play with me, and a link to my Google Drive where you can download all of like the materials I prepare. So yeah, if you don't have enough D&D in your life, check that out. And I'll catch you next time.